So my name's Jason Dorland, and I rode for Canada on the national team during the late 80s, 86, 87, 88. I was a member of the men's 8 in Seoul. And I guess my story is that going to the Olympics and winning a gold medal had always been my dream from a young boy. And when we went in 88, Canada was the defending Olympic champions. I wasn't part of that boat, but I was part of the 88 crew, and there were a number of the guys that carried over. And I just assumed that we would win again. And when we didn't, that was probably the most difficult thing I've ever had to come to terms with in my life. And I was a young kid, and I just was not prepared to lose. And the fallout of that was, you know, perhaps typical now that we look back on how athletes transition from the Olympics. But, you know, there was depression, there was an eating disorder, there was all kinds of stuff, and I was a pretty angry and messed up young guy. But what came of that were some really powerful lessons in terms of how it has shaped me as a person, but as a coach as well. When I raced and trained and rode as a young athlete, everything I did was about winning. That was the only reason I rode, was to win. And what I've realized now is that when all you focus on is winning, you really inhibit your ability to win. And I think it's, you know, it's one of the greatest paradoxes in sport, is that in order to be successful, we need to focus on all of the things that we can take care of. In sport, or in rowing, for example, our training, how fit you are, and your technique, how well you rowed. Those are really the two major things that affect your boat speed. So if you focus on those two things, the results of that will be what they are. If the results of it are that you're fast and you win, well, that's a byproduct. It's a byproduct of really good process. But if all you focus on is the outcome of winning, then it inhibits your ability to focus on really good process. It clouds it. And, you know, the examples of that are everywhere in terms of sport. And I think now as a coach, I've taken what I've learned as an athlete and I've made it, you know, who I am as a coach. I never use the word win when I coach. I never let my athletes use the word win when they row. And yet, you know, we've won numerous national championships. I've won numerous national championships as a coach, and my crews have been very successful. And yet, the goal was never to win. The goal was always just simply to go as fast as we could on the day of the race. And I'm not saying that to say, you know, look at me, look at me. I think it's more that I think if coaches were to take a really good look at why it is they coach, they may not like what they look or what they see. And I think invariably when you have coaches who are in the sport and involved in coaching young people for the right reasons. In my case, I love coaching because rowing changed my life. Okay, taught me things there's no way I would have learned in other parts of what I was involved in. So now as a coach, what I get a kick out of doing is giving that back, giving them an environment where they can learn and really have their lives transformed. If coaching was just about winning, I would have got bored years ago. If it's just about medals, then I'm not interested. If it's about changing the lives of a young boy or girl, I'm interested. And I think if more coaches were to connect with sport for those reasons, not only would we have a healthier culture in rowing and in sport, but perhaps we'd have better athletes. And that's the crazy part of it, is that we think by instilling this win at all costs in our athletes that we're serving them and we're helping them. And we're not. Nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, they're simply perspective, process, and performance. And what they entail is really having a perspective whereby you focus inward for motivation. You don't focus on any of what I call the traditional carrots of motivation. You don't focus on trying to kill your competitors. You don't focus on trying to beat the clock. And you don't focus on trying to win. You make your focus, your motivation, just the intrinsic satisfaction of going really fast and getting better. Ultimately, that's a better motivator than any sort of stick and carrot motivation. It's just the way we're wired. When we feel good about what we do, it motivates us to want to keep going. When we're simply showing up because we don't want to get punished or because we're going to win something, it'll work, but it's limited. Process was just what I said a moment ago. Identifying your process. What are the things you can control? And then control them. Do the best that you can. Don't worry about your competitors. Don't worry about things that you can't or shouldn't have to worry about. Just let it all go and focus on your own stuff. And then performance, I think that's the toughest one for people to embrace, because invariably what I believe is that the level of performance that people achieve is a direct reflection upon how well they engage in their process and the perspective with which they do that. I think when coaches and athletes finally figure that out, when they realize that that's the case, it really is a freeing moment. It's a moment where they can just go, okay, I'm good with whatever happens in this race, and all I need to worry about is my race. The bonus of that is that invariably they'll have a higher chance, a higher probability of having a great race and perhaps winning. The bonus is if they have a great race and they get beat or they lose, there's still something to celebrate. They've had a great race. And to me, that should be something we can celebrate. If we can't, there's something seriously wrong with the program or with the coach or with the philosophy of the whole sport. I don't know that I would have sort of a message in terms of a strategy. I guess my only thoughts around that would be, great. If you want to go into elite sport, I think that's wonderful. And if you have dreams of going to the Olympics and winning or doing whatever, that's fantastic. But don't ever let the outcome of those dreams define who you are. Because especially in elite sport, in my case, what makes an Olympic medal mean so much is that they're hard. They're hard to win, right? It's hard to win an Olympic gold medal. So the fact that I didn't win one defined me for a long time. It was how I showed up to people. I was an Olympic gold medal loser. And I think when people go around defining themselves by what they achieve or don't achieve, I think that's a really unfortunate place. I think you should define yourself by what you aspire to be, not by what you get. So if your goal is to be an Olympic champion, good on you, Go give it your best shot. But if things go sideways, it doesn't make you a bad person, right? You followed a dream, you had the courage to do that, and there's no shame in that.